What's up guys? I'm here to show you today how I screen print my shirts and designs that I make for my brand. I'm going to show you how I do it step by step for under 50 bucks. It's a pretty simple process, but it's a little bit complicated in terms of we're not doing anything professionally. We're just going to do everything in the backyard. And I'm going to show you how I make my screens, how I set up my garments, and then how I actually screen print the actual designs on the shirts, and how I cure the ink. So let's go ahead and get started. So these are all the items laid out in front of you. I've got a few different sections of items step by step that I go through. First of all, we go through and we need to make the frame. And so the frame itself is something that typically is done professionally. And typically what you do for a frame is you want the mesh frame, might have heard like emulsion ink, and then you burn an image into the ink and you make essentially how screen printing works is that ink is set across a screen, and then the areas that are open, the ink seeps through and then actually prints onto your garment or your clothing item. So today we're actually going to make this an alternative way, and what I use vinyl to make my screens. So what you'll need to do is you'll need to get the picture frame or a wooden frame. You actually make your own if you want. You get a wooden frame, and then you'll need mesh. I use 110 mesh count actual mesh curtains, but you can actually buy these on Amazon, different mesh counts for different seepage amounts, so like the amount of ink that actually goes through. So once you grab your wooden frame, you also need the mesh to go on the frame to make your actual screen frames. And so what I do is actually use mesh that I buy on Amazon. I'll put a link in the description. It's usually about $10 for a roll. You can get different mesh counts for different amounts of ink that actually goes through it, but I use like the most basic one. And then once you have your screen created, you're going to want to head and also get the other items, which are the vinyl. And so you can actually go and purchase what I use, which is the silhouette cutting machine, which actually die cuts vinyl, and then you can actually make as many screens as you'd like in the future. But if you're not into that sort of thing, you can actually make basic vinyl images by using microblades, and then also the vinyl itself. The vinyl itself, the rolls are about $10 for a good amount, and then the microblades you can use whatever you need. You can get them for really cheap on Amazon for under 10 cents per blade. Alternatively, you can go on Etsy.com and you actually order your designs to be pre-cut vinyl, so that the vinyl you receive is already cut and you can go ahead and apply it onto your screens, and that's also really cheap. You can do it for under $10 per design. And so what you'll need is obviously your vinyl at this point, your screen that we've created, and then you'll need your garment and your ink. So the garment, you can use any sort of clothing. For this video, we're going to use just a regular tie-dyed cotton t-shirt. However, you can use, I've printed on jackets and other items as well. And then you'll need your ink, screen printing ink. I use either screen ball emulsion ink, which you can get on Amazon for $10 per little tub, but you can also use any or other sort of like screen printing ink. I have a Japanese one here that I use as well. They're varying results. Kind of go through and pick out the ones that you like. Some are thicker, some are not. And then once you've gotten your ink and your cotton t-shirt or your item that you're going to print on, you're going to need your squeegee, which helps you evenly distribute the ink through the vinyl screen printing screen that you've created. And then finally, you're gonna want to get a heat gun, which I've got on Amazon here for about $10. The heat gun helps cure the ink and dry the shirt. And then finally, once you've dried the shirt and cured the ink, you're gonna make sure and go over the shirt with an iron, which helps set the final product. And so those are the items that you'll need for this video. So once you get your mesh cut out to the size that you need, what you're gonna go ahead and do is staple it to your frame. And so what you do is you have it cut out, you have maybe a couple inches extra on all borders of the side, and then you flip it over. Make sure that the flush edge is the edge facing down, because what essentially you're doing is you're gonna flip it in, stretch it, pull it tight, staple it, and you're gonna make a screen. So let me go ahead and show you how we do that. First, you wanna get one edge, and you just kinda wanna staple it in. So kind of slowly go in and stretch it as you go. Get one edge. Doesn't have to be too tight for this first one. So once you've got one edge stapled on the border here, what you're gonna wanna do is flip it to the side and pull it really, really freaking tight. Like just until you think it might like break the frame. And then you're gonna wanna go ahead and staple each part so that it's nice and stretched and taut. So once you've got your screen created, the next part is that you're gonna get your vinyl that you have pre-cut to the whatever design that you want to screen print onto your actual screen. So here we have the vinyl that I've pre-cut using the silhouette machine, and we're gonna want to painstakingly, and this is like the biggest pain in the ass part of this whole process, is that we're gonna transfer this vinyl image onto your mesh screen. So once you've got your vinyl cut out, maybe you bought your vinyl or you hand cut it out, hand drew it, or you used the Silhouette Studio like I did, you're gonna wanna take out the negative image. This is the image that you're actually gonna print, screen print on your item, your clothing. And so you can see I've already gone ahead, taken off all the excess vinyl here. And now this is the hardest part of the whole freaking process. What you do is you go ahead and carefully peel off the damn vinyl, but you wanna retain the shape. And you don't want bubbles. So this is like, so what I do is I get like an edge fully peeled, and then I bend this over and then kind of align it to how I want it, and then I just go for it. So I make sure that this is flat, see, like that, and then I slowly peel off the back as I'm like laying it. And it's kind of hard. There. Kind of go nice and slow. Don't want to do too much tension or else it'll like tear. So see, it's how it's already tearing the S here. You want to make sure you get slowly but surely. We win the race. If you feel tension, don't pull too hard, because then you know like something's about to like give. I kind of just like peel it off slowly from the opposite side. Like wherever area gives, just go from that area. That's always usually a good way to do it. Oh, yoisho.
Wait, that's it.
Yoisho. Alright, the tricky thing is now laying it so it doesn't like bubble up or anything. Slowly, we're gonna lay it. You really want to take care to not make any like big bubbles, because that really affects your screen at the end there. So now that you've got the main image on, you're gonna need to put in the details, and this is another hard part. So you're just gonna have to eyeball it. That's how I do it. Come on,
Bruh, enough.
Oh, all right.
Nice.
And you can actually purchase a really easy solution, and it's called sticky transfer paper for your vinyl that helps easily transfer vinyl to your screen. I don't have that because I'm a cheap ass, and so you can actually, I'll put a link in the description if you want it. But for today, we're gonna do it the way that I always do it, which is using a little tweezer and just piece by piece putting it back onto the screen. What you wanna make sure to do, there are two key things you wanna make sure you do. The first is that when you transfer it, you wanna make sure that your surface that you're transferring your screen onto, the mesh, the actual screen that you created, is flat, it's totally flush. And so that way, that kind of ties into the next item, is that when you're putting your vinyl back the way you're essentially recreating your vinyl onto your screen, you want to make sure that there are no air bubbles, like zero, no air bubbles. You want to make sure that that thing is just as flat as it can be. Just make sure that it's just like there's no chance in hell that any ink is gonna seep through. Because the problem is that when you have air bubbles, the ink, as you're screen printing, it gets under those air bubbles and up the whole thing. So just make sure that as you put your vinyl down, use a credit card, a card, whatever, just like something to like really smooth out the edges. And that way, that'll ensure that these handmade screens create the best image. And so actually, as we do this, I usually do a test print right after I make the first screen to see if there are any bubbles I missed. And then I go in after and fix the screen, and then it's good to go. So now we're doing pretty well. We've got our screen, we've got our clothing item ready to go, and the final piece to actually see how the screen comes out is that you're actually going to want to screen print. And so two key things you want to do is, first of all, you want to make sure that your clothing item is flat. And actually, I have a piece of wood that I made that I put in between the actual shirt. So once you have your item, your clothing item flat, got something in between both sides of the shirt, because you don't want the ink to seep through out to the back side of the shirt. You want to make sure that it's flat, flush, and then you're going to get your screen now and you're going to put it on your clothing item. You're going to align it the way you want. So typically for the designs that I do, I found that if you put like 4 fingers from the bottom of the neckline here, the collar, to the top of your image, that's a good like distance. It looks kind of visually nice. And then you want to make sure that your design is actually centered on your shirt. And then once you have your design aligned the way you want it, you want to go ahead and get your butter knife or whatever knife that you have available just to scoop out whatever ink that you need. And then you're going to want to put a generous amount on the top of the actual screen. One key thing here to do is as you're screen printing, as you're dragging it across your design, you don't want to go back and forth, because that actually puts too much ink onto your garment. And so when you do it, you just want to do one direction across the whole entire image. And so once you've put your ink, you've splattered across there at the top, you take your squeegee and you want to apply even pressure across all areas of a design. But you don't want to do too many passes. Typically I do like 2, maybe 3 passes to just strong, constant pressure across the whole design. And then as you drag it across. You don't want to go back up. You just drag it nice and slow down across the entire design. At the end, you're going to go ahead and just in one motion pick it up, and then you'll be able to see your finalized image design. On this particular shirt, you can tell in the bottom right corner there, we kind of f***ed up where the R and the S kind of bled through. And so that tells me this is kind of just a test print. That tells me that I had bubbles that I actually missed. And so what I'll do now is, in order to finish this screen, I'll go ahead and either take excess vinyl on the back side and kind of cover up those parts to make sure that the next print is properly sealed, or I'll go ahead and just kind of press down harder on those areas to make sure those bubbles come out. And then you'll have a perfect screen ready to go. So now you have your shirt, you've got your image printed. What you want to do next is actually cure the ink. If you were to just let this dry, air dry, and then put it in the washing machine, that shit's just gonna wash out. I've done that in the past and just screws up everything. Typically professional dryers, they'll put these through like giant like ovens, like slow conveyor belts to cure the ink. You can do this a number of ways. The one way that I found is really easy is I use this heat gun that I got on Amazon for like 10 bucks. I go ahead first is I slowly go over the image, making sure not to burn it. I make sure that all the ink is dried and it's gotten nice and heated up, typically 10 to 15 seconds per area of the image. And then I'll go ahead and after a little while, I'll take an iron to the actual image itself, and I'll go over as well on the cotton setting, if it's a cotton shirt, and then I'll do about 10 to 15 seconds on each area of the whole design, the complete design. Once you've done those 2 steps, typically all the ones that I've done, the ink properly cures, properly sets, and you have no problems putting it into the washing machine and drying it afterwards. You'll have your finalized image, and then you're good to go. You can make a bunch of different screens, a bunch of different designs. This is a really, really quick way to make screens at home for cheap. Once you have the basic items purchased, you can actually make per screen. I think I spend like 10 bucks per screen. And the great thing about this is that you don't have to go through a professional printer or anything crazy. You can make these at home really quickly. I can make a screen in 45 minutes to an hour. If you have like a really simple design, you can make a screen really fast, really easy, and it's a great way to like make clothing items if you're especially like a startup, or like you just want to make samples of designs that you just created in Photoshop or something like that. This is a great way to do it as well. So I hope this information helped you. This is how I do it at home. I think it's a little bit not as of a mainstream way to like make clothing items, but it's a really fun way. You can really get creative and do a lot of different areas on the shirt as well. I know a lot of professional places don't let you print anywhere you want, but you can, with this technique, you can print anywhere, you can print anything. And I hope this helps. Make sure to follow myself and my friend who helped me with the video today, Peace, on our socials. I'll put our social stuff on the descriptions. And stay tuned for more information and more videos. Peace.